One of the things that I enjoy doing in this channel is being critical of Riot and how they handle things on Valorant. But Riot arguably just had one of the best dev updates that they've ever had. They were very transparent, which is something that the community has been asking for, and I figured if I'm going to bash them here and there, I should also commend them for the transparency that they're attempting to have. I definitely recommend, if you haven't looked at it yet, go watch the dev update on your own. I've using clips here and there of certain points that I want to elaborate more on. There's definitely some things that I looked over, and I'm only going to be talking about certain things that really caught my attention in this video.
As a starting point, we're going to be more transparent around map rotations going forward, so you all know when they're happening ahead of time.
Starting off with the bang, I'm really glad that the dev team finally got around to addressing this. We as a community were really up in arms about when this map rotation was going to happen. A lot of us were under the impression that with this new act, the new map was going to come in, or at least the new rotation. Then we got told that the new map was going to be happening after the Valorant tournament that's coming up. And then we got told, oh yeah, by the way, the map pool will also be changing then as well. Now, obviously it makes sense. They're introducing a new map. They probably should hold off on the map rotations, but it would have been very useful for us to know ahead of time so that we didn't get any hopes up too high, or we were left in the dark wondering when the map rotation was going to happen. Now, I also do think they need to keep in mind how often these map rotations do take place, especially because this time around they confirmed that Haven is going to be coming back in, Breeze and Split are going to be going out, and that's it. They didn't officially confirm it, but it's easy to infer that when the new map does come out, that'll be the second map that gets added onto the rotation. But because they haven't released the name of the map or how it looks yet, I figured they're probably holding on to that information for now. But a lot of people were upset that we did not get Pearl, which Pearl is a map that I enjoy playing. I've definitely had my fun on it. I'm not too bummed out for it not being back just yet. I think it's good that they don't just bring everything back that people want right away, so that the next map rotation, we're probably going to get Pearl, which a lot of people are going to be looking forward to. I'm so happy that Haven is back. I did not think I would miss Haven as much as I have, so that's a win for me in the map rotation side of things for the dev team.
The live game team's top priority for 2024 has been to increase intra-role diversity across the roster.
So this point of theirs, they've already kind of alluded to in a couple of the previous patch notes, but essentially what they're getting at is the fact that they're going to be looking at the specific roles, whether it's controller or in this case duelist, and they're going to see how the pick rate is distributed within that role. And if there's one that's getting too many picks while another agent is getting no picks at all within that class, they're going to do some readjustment. They've already announced some of the duelist readjustments that they have going on right now, but they also kind of got into a little bit on why they're choosing not to buff and instead nerf. If you watched my previous video, I kind of alluded to the fact that Valorant is essentially divided into three pieces. You have your weapons, you have your maps, and you have the gunplay, which is really the players. And it seems that the dev team kind of understands Valorant from this same point of view as well. They've really brought up the point that at the end of the day, Valorant is a tactical shooter. So if they were only to buff guns or agents, for example, to try to match whatever the most popular pick is at the time, essentially what they're doing is they're creating an imbalance between the three different factors that make up the game. So right now, for example, let's just say Jet and Raze have the best duelist pick rate. Instead of just buffing ISO and Neon to that level, they also readjust Jet and Raze. Raze, for example, is getting her satchel movement nerfed a little bit. I don't think they fully announced the details, but essentially that's why they choose to nerf over buff. I really appreciated that they got into their philosophy because, as you know, I've previously done videos on a Yoru buff, on a Phoenix buff. When Fade came out, we talked about the viability of Fade and how that would look. I really enjoyed dissecting these agents and their kits, and now that we know that Riot is always going to lean more towards nerfing agents instead of buffing, it kind of gives me some ideas on some future adjustments that might take place, which gets me excited because that's obviously more content for me to cover and talk about. But it also helps us in making sure that the next time there's an agent that's doing really bad, we're not yelling for buffs. Instead, we're looking at why the other agents are significantly better than the underperforming agent.
In early June, with patch 8.11, we're shifting our focus to the duelist role.
They acknowledge that the community over time does improve. And I think that is very important to keep in mind. They specifically use Jett as an example. When the game first came out in beta, a lot of people were under the impression that Jett was useless, that Jett was by far the worst duelist. And it wasn't until they brought it up during this dev update that I remembered that discourse taking place. I remembered when I first started playing Valorant shortly after the beta phase, a lot of people were telling me, why are you going Jett? Jett's obviously the worst duelist out of all of them. Reyna was really overpowered at the time. Raze was really good as people were enjoyed the damage that she was outputting. Jett by far was considered the worst agent. I mean, even Phoenix had flashes. But then over time, as players got a hold of the game, they realized how the game worked, and they realized just how impactful Jett's abilities could be on the map. Jett's pick rate skyrocketed, which ultimately led to the course of a few years of her getting nerfed, some adjustments to her kits, etc. So I really appreciate that they acknowledge the fact that, hey, the community is growing. The more time that people have to play Valorant, the more innovation that takes place. We also have to adjust to agents, because at the end of the day, certain agents might be found out, their kits might be like better known, especially on what each ability brings to the table. And when that starts to take place, certain agents start to shine more, while other agents start to look lackluster, and that's when they step in and do some of those readjustments.
These balance changes in 8.11 will most likely be the last significant ones you see from us until after champs.
It's always interesting to me to see different communities and how they interact with their devs teams and what they want and how that communication channel works for them. I feel like we over on the Valorant side of things really do underappreciate how much devs actually talk. There's been some controversies even on social media where devs themselves are responding to some of these things that are taking place on social media, and it seems that the dev team is very vocal with us, which I think, you know, of course we appreciate, but it also is something that as a creator I can't help but appreciate, because they bring up stuff that comes up in videos. I mean, even now, like this next battle pass, or the battle pass that we currently have now, they've released some sprays that are directly referencing things that have taken place over on a stream or on a YouTube video, which I think is really cool, but also demonstrates that they're paying attention to the community and what the community is talking about. But to elaborate on why I wanted to highlight this specific clip, it's the fact that they're keeping VCT, which is the main pro scene of Valorant, in mind when it comes to making these changes. I think that is super huge to keep in mind. The fact that how an agent plays on the professional level can lead to adjustments that will affect the entirety of the community and vice versa. So I think going forward, that's another thing to keep in mind. How does that relationship work? Is KO really terrible right now casually, but on the pro scene, he's a menace. He's just so good, like a nerf is inevitable. That sort of thing I think is something that we need to start keeping track of and making sure that we take into account whenever we have these conversations of what we would like to see when it comes to adjustments for agents.
Also, we're working on some pretty exciting stuff for after champs that you'll get to play closer to the end of the year, like larger balance updates and modes changes.
They finally brought up modes, which I will say I have been surprised to see just how big the casual scene is in Valorant. And I'm not talking about like people that are not professionals. I'm talking about the people that don't even bother with ranked. As somebody that always plays ranked, how does that happen? Well, it happens because, you know, whether it's due to time constraints or just simply not being as competitive as some other players, they just don't view that mode as something that they want to do. Hence why we have modes like Team Deathmatch, Spike Rush. So the fact that they're bringing up modes and the potential of a new mode is exciting. I know for some of us, it may not be as exciting, especially if you're a ranked demon. So I'm excited for Valorant to continue developing that casual scene in those modes. And then obviously they announced that they're going to be focusing heavier on bigger patches towards the end of the year. That's exciting as well to see what changes are going to be taking place both on the agents, on the weapon side. A lot of things on the horizon is basically what they're alluding to.
For many of you, gun skins are basically fashion. One of our design goals is to make sure there's at least one skin out there for everyone.
The skin section of the video, I do recommend, again, you go watch that dev team update. The amount of backlash that I have seen sometimes when it comes to skins that for whatever reason, for the majority of players, it just doesn't hit. It's just not what they were expecting, or they immediately compare it to a previous skin and think, oh, the Valorant skins are falling off. At the end of the day, if a skin comes out and it's not for you, you know, that's too bad. Maybe the next one is. But I think the fact that, you know, the dev team is not being discouraged by some of the backlash that they probably have gotten throughout the years. I know the most recent skin, the Miss Bloom, for whatever reason seems to be a major hit. It seems like color is really something that they're also taking a look at, but the points that they brought up seem very valid, and I can understand why some players want different colors. So I think their point of having a skin for everyone, I think that's good on their part. At the end of the day, if you really don't think these skins are worth the value, then don't buy them. But clearly there are people that do think so, and I think that's okay too. I don't think there's any reason to go after people who buy skins in this game.
First off, we have been working on replays. You're actually looking at a free cam view from a prototype build of our replay system.
And of course, they decided to finish off the dev update with replays. I don't doubt Valorant making a good replay system. I just doubt the people that are begging for it. I think it'll definitely have its value, and over time people will see, especially newer players, they'll understand just how important it is to have a replay system, to be able to go back into a game and look at a specific round. I think it's going to be huge. I definitely agree with that. And as a content creator, of course it's going to be big for content creation. Are you kidding me? Like, people are going to do some of the craziest edits when the replay system finally comes out. But I don't think it's a wide population of players that want the replay system. I think it's just a very vocal minority. Like, the fact that Riot is still trying to bring this replay system out when they have been talking about it for years, and almost any other dev team at this point would have given up. And Riot doesn't seem to be doing that. Like, the fact that they showed us a prototype to kind of let us know, like, hey, like, we're still working on this. If you guys care about it, we care about it as well. When they were developing Valorant, they knew they wanted Valorant to run well. How do we make sure that anybody can run Valorant? How do we make it so that there's not that much of a hardware demand on people or on players specifically? And I think the fact that, you know, the replay system unfortunately was just not something that they had in mind when they were developing Valorant initially. So they've had to develop this whole system entirely from scratch. And I think that says something, the fact that they're willing to do that for the community. And of course, you know, they're taking their time and it's been a slow process, but I encourage everybody to be patient. The fact that they have a prototype is very encouraging. Clearly it'll be coming within probably another year or two. With my last video, I really wanted to touch upon the toxicity that's present in this game. And literally 2 or 3 days after I uploaded that video, a streamer was able to record a clip of another player during a match just saying some of the most disgusting, vile things you'll ever hear a person say. The point I want to make is the fact that the dev team responded to the streamer and responded to the situation. This dev update was recorded at the beginning of May, so all the toxic stuff that we've been discussing for the last 2-3 weeks unfortunately was after they had already recorded this video. So I just wanted to bring that last point up at the very end since it wasn't part of the dev update. But with all that said, thank you for watching this whole thing through. I know it was a bit of a yap session, you know, the fact that there's people that are willing to hear me out on some of my opinions about this stuff, but also have conversations with me in the comments. If you're still at this point of the video, I mean, you're a go. I appreciate you watching it at this point. Like, comment, subscribe, the whole thing, you know, the YouTuber spiel, and I'll see you all for the next video. Peace out.